So these are all the parts needed to build the second tiles machine. There's a lot of steel parts, aluminum parts, and also 3D prints like this part of the housing. And some other parts are only printed for now, and they will be milled from aluminum or steel later on. Even though there's a lot of parts, most of it is already simplified compared to the first version.
For those who are new to the channel, my name is Manuel and I'm an engineer from Germany, working on all sorts of tech projects that I find fascinating. Over the last years, I'm working on a desktop injection molder that I'm planning to bring to market. And I want to share some of the behind the scenes of the second generation of this machine in development. And I hope you find this interesting and enjoy watching.
As you can see, there are so many parts that are 3D printed, and that is for a reason. Actually, when I checked it last time with the BOM file, it is roughly 60% of all the total parts. Of course, that is only now, until I get all the manufactured parts, but even then roughly 30% of the total part count is 3D prints. Without 3D printing, this machine wouldn't exist, and for sure I couldn't just build it from the small room in my apartment in a city. I want to show you how I use 3D printing to build this second generation of the machine, and how it can help a ton when used for engineering applications. In a world full of wiggly dragons and questionable 3D prints, I hope this gives you some inspiration and ideas in how these awesome machines can also be used. For all prototypes I make a 3D print first, and all parts here fit size-wise on a Prusa Core 1L, which I use for this build. Now there's of course some stuff that I haven't assembled yet. As you can see, there's no motor yet, or the bottom plate is also not installed, and a few other components as well. I will wire the electronics in the coming days with a friend. And of course, as soon as the machine parts for these plates arrive, I will have to exchange these two. Now talking about electronics, my buddy Sebastian has been cooking lately, squeezed out something really cool for this build.
So, what are we looking at here, Sebastian?
Here we can see the first version of the taco board. Basically, most of the old electronics on the first machine put on one PCB. That will make the assembly much faster with all the connectors, with a much cleaner setup, and it's just a more professional way to build the electronics.
We ordered this motherboard on JLC PCB, where we are a frequent customer for projects like this one. This beautiful piece of engineering deserves its own video, and I will come back to it later. But just look at how much this has already simplified the switch cabinet inside the machine body. Even though the two builds look very similar on the outside, there has been a ton of changes inside, all centered around deleting stuff that isn't necessary, which led to 17% less parts for the second machine. This machine is still complex and still more complex than necessary, but it takes forever if you really want to shrink it down to just the most necessary components, and at some points you just have to make a cut and get a machine done. Let's look for example at the flake feeding unit, which consisted of more than 15 prints, and now it is a single big unit. Same goes for the cover of the extruder drive. In total this means 315 bodies before, and now we're down to 261. When you start optimizing a product for the assembly and cost, something really interesting happens. You begin to question every single part. Do I really need this part? Can I reduce it? Can it even be replaced or deleted? Or can I use something that already exists and that I don't have to manufacture myself? The best part is no part. The best process is no process. It can break. It doesn't need maintenance. It doesn't show up in any BOM file where you have to take care of it. And it won't experience supply chain issues. Another really interesting bulb in building such a machine is standardization. Wherever possible, I try to use these M5 screws with 20mm length, and if possible I try to get rid of screws completely and use some sort of a snap joint for the assembly. Of course there are exceptions. For safety critical components I use screws, and wherever there's more force or heat applied, those make more sense. We can't grab every machine part off the shelf, and roughly 12 custom-made parts are needed. Most of them we can fortunately make in-house, others we have to get from a supplier. Which brings me to the sponsor of this video, RapidDirect. RapidDirect is an online on-demand manufacturer with a huge selection of materials and processes. They actually provided all these big aluminum parts that you can see here throughout the video. What I especially like about the platform is that you can configure a part after uploading it. You just drag and drop the step file and can configure threaded holes in batches, so you don't have to specify every hole on its own, which was for my parts with all these holes and threads a massive time saver. The parts showed up fast, and everything was exactly as I expected and specified. Big shout out to RapidDirect for sponsoring these parts for the build, and now back to the video. Not just the housing contains lots of prints, also functional engineering parts are printed. With the new resin printers out there, we can now make parts that solve issues that we had formerly, for example with a melting flake tank. Here you see me printing a heat break on the Form 4 machine by Formlabs. It's made from a heat-resistant material and has a very important job. The flake tank that feeds material to the extruder is from an FDM material that starts to get soft or even melt when I heat the extruder to the maximum. Say if I want to use ABS and go above 260 degrees, it becomes a problem. So the part that is in contact with the extruder is now from a high temp material, solving this issue. The details on these prints are crazy and I have to hold myself back not writing novels onto every face, because it's just so easy to print tiny features into them. The next engineering piece that is from resin material goes into the extruder drive. I print a small tooth belt here that drives the extrusion screw with the feather key integrated. You might think this is a bad idea since this is a very torque-intense application, but I'm confident this works because since 2022 we have a PTG gear running in task 1. So this print from an engineering resin will work much longer, and having the feather key integrated saves another tiny part for the build. The fact that there's so much printed on this machine is mostly due to the high cost of injection molded parts, and for future versions we want to make as many pieces on the task machine as possible. Until then we will 3D print many parts. When making the electronics, lots of small printed organizers come into play, all specifically made for this machine and often shared on my socials for free. The small snap mount print for the Bosch profiles, for example, has already been downloaded over 2000 times, which is so cool to me. I hope to see some creative applications with this one. An interesting thing to consider when printing anything with electronics is the material choice. Cable channels, for example, usually contain flame retardant additives like metal hydroxides or phosphorus compounds that help the material self-extinguish. Standard PETG or PLA does not have these additives, so it can burn and drip hot molten material, which is why using certified flame retardant materials is a safer choice for anything in a switch cabinet or close to it. On this small, very unscientific test bench you can see the only material that does not completely melt away is the ABS with flame retardant additives. A few other parts that I think are really cool and are 3D printed are, for example, the mounts for the rails, which allow for the whole switch cabinet to be on this drawer. Then there's the door covering the whole clamp body that is also 3D printed. The version 2 of this door features these tiny dashboards that give it a soft to close compared to version 1. As the very last part, I want to show you my favorite print in this machine, the flake feeding screw. A feed screw that transports all the material into the extruder. I do not know what it is that I like so much about this part. I think it's just a beautiful complex geometry. Task 1 was completely made on a Pusher Mark III, and large prints like this were split into several small prints. It is great that now this can be made from a single piece. Of course, with larger prints, your scrap also gets larger if something does not work, so be careful when starting huge prints and remember the Spider-Man quote.
With great
3D printers
comes great responsibility.
I hope you enjoyed this video or you thought this was interesting. Please let me know what you think of the approach of 3D printing so many parts and where you agree and disagree with what we do. I would really love to hear all of it. Now for the end of this video, I would like to answer a few questions that are frequently asked, with the first being, when is the machine available? Task 2 is still in active development, so we're testing lots of different parts. For example, the PCB is in the second iteration and we're still waiting for other sensory components so that we can first test run with a batch of machines in Germany for the end of this year. Second, what is the ejection pressure and clamp tonnage? For all the tech specs, there's actually a datasheet on our website that we often update and where you find all the interesting technical facts like the machine size, the footprint, the weight, the tonnage, the ejection pressure. There's also lots of FAQs on the machine in general, availability, price, and just a ton of info, so I recommend to check this out. 3. What materials can TARS use? The material that we tested the most is definitely polypropylene. We tested waste polypropylene, virgin pellets, different kinds of recycled polypropylene blends. Polypropylene is one of the most common waste plastics, so it's very easy to find and also quite easy to recycle. There's also other materials that we plan to test in the future like ABS, TPU, PETG, PLA, and also all these materials as 3D printing waste. For example, in a coming video I'll be shredding loads of PLA poop from another project and I will see how that will behave in the machine. So stay tuned and make sure you stick around for the coming video. 4. We will sell a kit or open source the design. I'm not quite sure about that yet. For now the focus is fully on getting the second machine up and running and focusing on the beta tests. After that I think it's likely that we will make some sort of open source version, but for now that is not really a priority. If you have any other questions that I should answer in the next video, please drop them down below in the comments. And as always, thank you very much for watching.